I start saying something, I have to recognize something that local people, state and federal people, I have to thank them again and again for all the stuff they did for us during COVID. This outside dining area would never be here without the help from everybody. And I'll never forget it. We went through some hard times, but with their help, we got through it, and we're going to continue to do well in our business, the restaurant business. This bill is probably one of the best bills I've seen in a long time. We've seen some crazy bills, but this one here is definitely one of the tops. Tangible tax, what is it? In my restaurants, it's an extra tax on all my equipment, including ovens, grills, tables, chairs, plates, etc., that we have to keep track of and file paperwork with the city of Woonsocket and the town of Lincoln. It's a lot of paperwork, and some businesses have to hire accountants to do it for them at a cost. Passing this bill would definitely save some businesses money and a lot of paperwork. During these last 3 years, we've gone through some very trying times, and Senator Murray's and Rep. Voss's bill will really help us out and all small businesses across this great state. With that, I would like to introduce Senator Melissa Murray. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, for hosting us today and for sharing your perspective as a small business owner. I am super excited to be sponsoring this tangible tax relief legislation because it's going to make a meaningful difference for people like Dave and for people like Elise Perret, owner of Gray's on Main Street, who you will also be hearing her perspective in a little while. I just want to thank and recognize everyone who has joined us. David Hoos, of course, Elise Perret, Elizabeth Kachuchi from the Northern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce, Michael DBAs from the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, Representative Brandon Bowes, who is sponsoring this legislation in the House, and Woonsocket Mayor Lisa Baldelli Hunt, who will also share her perspective as a municipal leader. I also want to take a moment to recognize all of the General Assembly members who have joined us today. We have here with us Senator Roger Pickard, Senator Tokoyan, House Minority Leader Michael Chippendale, Rep. Jennifer Boylan, Rep. Casey, and Rep. Brian. And I want to give a very special shout out to Senate President Dominic Ruggiero, who is also here with us today. President Ruggiero has been a longtime champion for Rhode Island's small business community, and I appreciate his support, as well as the support of Majority Leader Ryan Pearson for this legislation. So here's the bottom line. The tangible tax is a financial and administrative burden for Rhode Island small businesses. It's also an enforcement burden for cities and towns. It's complex, cumbersome, and counterproductive, and it holds businesses back, and it strains cities and towns. Businesses like Kay's, what is an institution here in Woonsocket. Businesses like Jerry's Bluffing Boutique on Main Street, and I know owner Geraldine Barclay King is here. Timeless Antiques, also on Main Street, owned by Frank and Tammy Irwin, and I know Tammy is here in support today as well. Small family-owned local radio stations like Owen Radio, whose owner Dave Richards is also here. Mom and pop businesses, family-owned businesses, like your favorite breakfast place, your local florist, all the businesses that add character and vibrancies to our cities and towns, making them better places to work, live, and visit. So these businesses are the lifeblood of our community. They give our neighborhoods color and character, and they also drive our economy. They employ tens of thousands of Rhode Islanders across the state. So this tangible tax relief plan will completely eliminate the tax for 85% of our small businesses in Rhode Island, like the ones that I just mentioned. And that's the kind of relief that can make a real difference for businesses. But I also love that equity is built into this bill. The top 15% of larger businesses and corporations will also get significant relief, but they will also pay their fair share. This bill is an investment in the fabric and character of our communities, and it's tax relief that we can and should provide. And now I'm pleased to introduce my counterpart in the House, who is supporting this legislation, Representative Brandon Bowes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Dave, for having us here to support this restaurant. We very much appreciate that. So, starting and running a business in Rhode Island, it's not always easy. The rules, regulations, requirements that businesses must comply with are often complex confusing, and obstructive. One of the most common complaints I hear about running a business from constituents and small businesses is to do with the tangible property tax. I hear about all the time and the money that has to be devoted to comply with the tangible property tax. Time and money that could be reinvested into the business to fuel growth for its employees and the state's economy. In order to have a healthy and thriving Rhode Island economy, we need to do everything in our power to remove the onerous obstacles that too often choke and stifle our small businesses. Taxing businesses, especially our small ones, on daily work essentials such as chairs, computers, equipment, is not helping not a single business. And a growing and successful business, in turn, lifts up the employees, the community, and the municipal and state economies. This legislation will eliminate a significant obstacle and frustration for the majority of our state's small businesses, and I'm proud to sponsor this bill, which will have a sustained and beneficial impact for the majority of our state's residences and businesses. Thank you, and now I'd like to take this time to introduce Mayor Lisa Baldelli-Hunt.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Senator, for sponsoring this bill. I feel that this is extremely important to the small business community. But before I continue, I do want to also acknowledge two other individuals who are here today. Two of our city councilors are here, Councilman Brian Thompson and Councilman Garrett Mansieri. Getting back to the importance of this legislation, and I can see just by seeing that Representative Chippendale is here that this is a bipartisan piece of legislation and everybody is recognizing the importance of it. So the impact that it has on a small business is more significant than most people recognize. Being in a family who has owned small businesses our entire lives, we recognize the burden of it, and also what we would always feel was the unnecessary taxation that was put upon businesses throughout the state of Rhode Island, and what that taxation could do if it stayed within that small business. I can tell you that in the city of Woonsocket, the legislation as it is submitted now, this would account, ironically, Senator, for 85% of the accounts that we have within the city of Woonsocket. So 85% of the accounts would see the relief from this legislation. And interestingly enough, that 85% of those accounts only account for 13% of the tangible tax that we collect. So when you think about that and you do the math and you calculate that out, you recognize the burden on the employees, the staff, and the municipality in order to try to collect 13% of the 100% of taxation. And I can tell you that that exercise was confirmed by no one other than our former tax assessor, who happens to be here today, Elise Parry, and along with Tom Kane, I'd say two of the best tax assessors in the state of Rhode Island, so thank you. And not only as our former tax assessor, but as a small business owner, Elise is here. So we just want to, on behalf of the city of Woonsocket, we want to thank everyone who's involved in this piece of legislation, and we are hopeful that we will see this across the finish line. Thank you. I failed at my duties. I have the privilege of introducing Elise Parry from Grays on Main in East Greenwich, and hopefully with her tax savings, she can open another shop in Woonsocket.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Elise Parry. I'm here representing Grays on Main, which is a small charcuterie and wine shop in East Greenwich. As the mayor alluded to, in my previous life, I was a tax assessor and had extensive municipal employment for 16, 17 years. And opening my own first small business. It's absolutely been amazing, but challenging. And one of the things that I think as a small business owner I recognize is just all the paperwork that we have to do, the reporting, the filing, and tangible tax is one of those. So I do think it's a burden to both the business owner, the small business owner, and also the municipality. The legislation proposed here by Senator Murray and Representative Vos does make it absolutely easier for businesses to start here in Rhode Island and essentially grow in Rhode Island. It's greatly beneficial to both the business owner, mostly small business owners, and then the town officials as well. So I'm in great support of this legislation and think it's long overdue. I'd like to thank you for your time today and introduce to you Elizabeth Pitucci from the Northern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Chamber member and dear friend David LaHouse for hosting today. I would also be remiss in saying, if you haven't had lunch yet, you need to go inside and have one of his amazing steak sandwiches. That's my plan afterwards. I'd also like to thank Senator Murray and Representative Vos for introducing this legislation. There are many reasons why the Chamber supports these bills. The tangible property tax is one of the most onerous and anti-competitive tax burdens imposed on small businesses in Rhode Island. Specifically, Northern Rhode Island, communities such as Woonsocket, Central Falls, North Providence, Johnston, and Smithfield have extremely high rates. Consistently, we hear three common frustrations from our businesses regarding the tax. First, the financial burden. As you heard from Dave and Elise, there's a significant financial impact this tax has on their businesses. In the increasingly challenging business environment, this tax is especially cumbersome for our small businesses. Many are paying thousands of dollars in property tax, which is posing a serious threat to not only their growth, but also their sustainability. Secondly, the difficulty with compliance. As you heard from the mayor, it's not just on the businesses side, but it's also on the municipality side as well. Because the forms provide no clear guidance, there is much confusion of what is or what is not taxable. Business owners are taking on the added cost, as Dave mentioned, of hiring a CPA to fill out the form because it's so unclear. For example, what's the estimated value of a desk you've brought from home to use in an office? I think I could probably ask every single person here what that value is, and you're all going to give me a different answer. Businesses question whether they're paying too much. Lastly, the tangible property tax is counterproductive to business growth. In its current form, the legislation discourages small businesses from making new investments, capital investments that would be used to expand. We have heard from businesses that have actually waited or rethought their expansion due to the tangible property tax. Overall, this is discouraging and hindering economic development in Rhode Island. I want to thank the Senate President and his office for giving the Chamber the opportunity to speak about this legislation. It is now my pleasure to introduce my colleague and also a dear friend, Michael DeBiase, the President and CEO of the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. RIPEC is very passionate about this issue, and we're so pleased that there's been so much support by the Senate President and Senator Murray and Representative Vos and so many elected. I see Rep. Casey and Rep. Phillips. I don't want to miss some people, but thank you so much, and to Mayor Boldo for your support. Very much appreciate it. I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the big picture. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk for long. Our municipalities faced with a limited tax base and increasing costs have been shifting the tax burden onto business, and they're doing this not because they don't like their businesses. As you've heard, it's just the opposite. They actually favor their businesses because they're making hard choices about protecting their residential homeowners from tax increases. And this is happening in nearly all of our large communities. Woonsocket's no exception. We've now come to the point across the state where the tax rates on commercial real estate in most of our larger communities are much higher than the residential tax rates. And then the tax rates for tangible property even higher still than the commercial rates. And this imbalance, unfortunately, is getting worse as the residential values are going up much faster than the commercial values. It creates a vicious cycle where business tax rates get higher and higher, and then businesses are discouraged from locating and investing, and investment is discouraged. So at RIPEC, we've written reports that are read by some on this issue of imbalance, and we think the best idea of addressing that is to pursue this tangible property tax relief through a statewide exemption with a reimbursement to cities and towns, and it lets the state pick up some of this tax burden. As we've heard today, the tangible tax is a very onerous tax, particularly for small business. This legislation will provide some relief to that tax, actually full relief for most taxpayers. It'll bring some much needed balance to our property tax system and start righting the ship. And once again, it's not a criticism to city leaders in places like Woonsocket that have to make some very hard choices. It's a way for the state to come and help them, much like they do with state education aid, to provide some relief in the budget. So I just want to thank all the elected officials, my colleagues here, Dave, for hosting. We're very excited about the momentum behind this. I hope that we can bring this legislation home, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think I'm clean up, which means I think I'm supposed to ask if there's any questions at this point. Is that right? Great. And that doesn't mean I'm going to field them, so I'm going to take a seat.
Thank you. And if you could have these folks stay here for a group photo. Okay.
I'll have you guys down here.